So I like using Notion for some of my workflows and Airtable for some other ones. And so I like to connect the two of those together. You can see if we look in my Airtable here, I've got this prod based one. This one's connected to Notion and has like marketing dashboards and a lot of that stuff. So a lot of the analytics data is in Airtable, but then the summaries of like this month's performance all goes and gets pulled over into Notion. This is one of my favorite syncs here. Anyway, I wanted to show a quick video of how to connect Notion to Airtable and how you can do it in just a few minutes. And it's actually so easy to do that this is going to seem almost overly simple maybe. Still, I want to try to just walk you through the process so that you can do this yourself and get started with something today and see how connecting Airtable to Notion can work for you. So to do this, we're going to use a tool called Whalesync. You can get a 14-day free trial at whalesync.com. When you come here, click login. I already have an account. If you don't, you'll need to create an account and that will get your free trial started. Now, once you're in here, you can see I already have a few syncs that are started. Yours will probably be empty the first time. You can just click up in the right corner here where it says new sync. And on this first step here, we're going to connect apps. Then we'll select the tables in those apps that we want to be synced together. And we'll actually have Whalesync create the tables in Airtable for us, so we don't need to do anything on that side to start setup. And then the last thing is we'll just activate the sync. This is a pretty basic sync because we're starting with one side empty, so we won't actually have to do any sort of record matching or steps like that. All right, so I'm going to start with Notion for the first one, and we'll go through sort of a normal OAuth flow here. It's going to ask us which pages we want to be able to have it look at. Sometimes that can be a little bit tricky if you're looking for something. And then Notion tips and tricks is the page here that contains this database. And so that's the one that I actually want to pick there. So we're going to allow access to that. Now they should be going and checking, making sure they've got access. Sometimes Notion's API takes a little while, but now we can see, okay, the workspace that we're in is workspace. Thank you. I know that's a very original name. And then the page is Notion tips and tricks. So we can save that side. And then as soon as that's been saved, we're going to do Airtable now. So we'll click authorize here. This is going to come up and ask us what base we want to work in. And I think for this one, we'll just do my Airtable base. I like using that one for some of these demos. So we're going to grant access and we're going to save it. Now we can take a look at my Airtable base here and you can see it's got this GA4 report and this mockery one, which is for mock data, by the way. I really don't need either of these right now, so we can just delete these and start fresh. See if it'll let us. No, it's not going to let us do that until we have a new one. Okay, so we're done with step one. We've connected Notion, we've connected Airtable, we've selected the workspace and the page that we're going to be working within in Notion, and we've selected the base that we're going to be working in inside of Airtable. So now we get to the part, this can be a little bit confusing when you first land here. What we're trying to do is we're trying to say, okay, this is the specific data. So let's see, in Notion here, this is the table, or Notion calls it a database. But this is what I want to be moving over to Airtable. And then I want something like that over here in Airtable that's going back. So part one here is the tables themselves. So we're not looking at columns yet. We're not looking at rows. We're just looking at the tables themselves. So we're going to add a table mapping here. We have YouTube Video Planner. That's the database that was in that page. If you can't find the one that you're looking for here, double check that you've shared the page that its parent is in Notion. And if you move it somewhere, you can just click refresh tables and Whalesync will actually go and recheck what's there. All right, so we've got that one here. And like I said, we don't actually have a table in Airtable yet. So we're just going to click create table here. And when we click create table mappings now, Whalesync is going to go to Notion, take a look at that table, and then go over to Airtable and create a similar table in Airtable. Sometimes it can't be exactly the same because different services obviously have different features, but it's going to try to create as similar of a table as possible. Okay, now that that's done, we can look over here and we can see we've got YouTube Video Planner, but it only has one column here called name. We obviously want more over there. Now, in the past, you would have to create all of these columns by yourself, but Whalesync can actually do that for you as well. So when we come in here and we're looking at this field mapping screen, what we're actually doing is saying, okay, inside of this database, I want to map these columns to certain columns over there. So you can imagine if this was a CRM, you might have a lot of hidden columns in the background. You might have name, company, deal size, things like that. And when you are mapping those, you're saying, this is the data that I want to bring across. And then here you're going to select which way you want the data to go. So you can have it going both ways. You could just have updates made in Notion go to Airtable. You could just have updates made in Airtable go to Notion, or you can have some combination if you want to do certain columns certain ways. But what we're going to do here is we're going to click Create Fields, and all of the fields that we're starting with are in Notion, so we're going to copy fields from Notion. I like to start by just selecting everything and then go through here and remove ones that I maybe don't need. So we probably don't need Notion record ID. Not using page content for this. Probably not going to use Sheets formula. I think that looks good. So we're going to copy those fields now. And if we look here in Airtable, we should start seeing these popping up in here as Whalesync's creating these. So again, it's really great, super convenient. I'm just sitting here and waiting, and there we go. Now, one of the other advantages of Whalesync creating all of these columns for you is that Whalesync actually can look at the data types, make sure that it's creating data types that match across, or at least are as close as possible for those tools. And then it's also going to map all of these fields for you automatically. Now, if you had a bunch of fields that you'd already created in both tables, and so you weren't going to be using this sort of create fields flow, there's an auto map option here, and it'll check in the background to see if there's anything that could be mapped. And if so, then this button will become active. You can click it and it'll just autofill all of this for you as well. So super, super convenient. Now, if we're trying to do multiple tables, like we have related tables, Notion calls them, I think, relations. Let's see if we're looking here at a new one. Yeah, a relation. So that would be where something in this database is linked to another database. You can actually sync those with Whalesync as well. And if you try to add one of those columns, it'll just prompt you to add the database or the table that's in to your mapping, and then everything should work fine as well. In this use case, we don't have that, so we're just going to hit save and continue. That's going to take us to step 3 up here, which is activate sync. Again, this is relatively simple because we only had one side with data to begin with, so we don't actually have to do any record matching or merging, so we can just click activate sync. It's going to give us some warnings here. I do recommend reading these. Sometimes it's just saying like, hey, it's going to use API stuff, but with Webflow or some of those tools, there are actually some steps you need to take to make sure that this first sync is successful. All right, now we're just waiting and watching as these go over. We can see 13 records had happened, 1 record. So it looks like these operations are done. So let's go take a look and see what has happened. All right, here we are. So here we are in Airtable with 22 records. So you can see those came across pretty quickly. And here's some great examples of how those different column types were maintained by Whalesync. So this is something that if you were exporting a CSV and then importing a CSV, you would lose a lot of this. But when you're doing it with Whalesync, you actually keep that. That's not super interesting all by itself. So let's just see how this works. So test, let's add that to there. And then let's come over here and let's see, where are we? We're in the name column. Boom, boom, boom. There we go, test. Okay, that's the one. So you can see that the edits that we made in Airtable came straight across here. And you notice we didn't do any sort of automations or multi-step workflows or anything. We just directly mapped the data. We can go the other way too. So we can say test 2 on this one. Let's maybe change the status here, see if we broke anything or if we need to add any sort of settings there. All right, so we should be seeing a test 2 soon here. And if you're ever wondering if something's happening, you can come back here and check your operations. It's going to tell you when it's going to be doing the next scan, or in the case of something like Airtable, if it's listening for webhooks, it doesn't have to scan as frequently. So if it misses something, like if you've created some views and you want it to, or sorry, if you've changed the filters on some views, you can just click the scan now right here, and that'll make sure that it updates to the latest views. And that's just because Airtable doesn't send out notifications when we do that. But we can see this operation has gone across, so we should be able to find it over here. Test 2, how to get AI for free. So again, that's the one that we did in Notion. Now deletes and everything work as well. So if we want to just delete this record, we can come in here, delete record. Yes, we want to delete it. And let's see how long it takes to get rid of that here. Boom, there it is. All right, so obviously deletes work, and we can see a record of that activity right here. It says that it was a delete. So that's the type of operation, where it was deleted from, and in this case, all of these are red because the entire record was deleted. You can see the different operation types here. If you want to see more detail on those, you can click to the operations tab and you'll have them all right here. You can search for a specific record, ID, or primary field if you want to narrow it down. And if there were issues, which we're not having any issues at all with this sync, but if there were issues, they would pop up here, and there's some really helpful AI summaries and AI text to help you with that exact specific issue and how to resolve it. So resolving issues is not usually too much of a burden, and generally it has to do with maybe a multi-select field that doesn't actually have the same values set on both sides. So it's usually, data wrangling type stuff to get those worked out. But there you go. That's how easy it is using Whalesync to create a integration between Notion and Airtable. As you saw, this is completely live, so now all of these changes happen both ways, and you can set these up in just a few minutes and get started. And if you want to give this a try yourself, again, go to whalesync.com, sign up for a free trial, and have fun. If there's anything else in specific that you run into as a problem, just let me know in the comments, and I'll see if I can make a video to help unblock you.